Dixon. I also should have mentioned is very, very tall. So here's a funny thing. We have two more storytellers and one envelope. So I'm going to announce your next to last storyteller, and then by process of elimination, we're just going to invite the last person up. But first, we're going to hear from great raconteur, great school teacher. He seems to already know he has an envelope because he's on his way. Give it up for Pat McCreary.
All right, 100% true, which I don't expect any of you to believe, because it's all based on you having known me as an 18-year-old. So I'm actually going to invite everybody. So much as I've assessed all of you in the time that you've been here, I don't think there's anybody under the age of 18. So I'm going to ask you, never mind, there might be, great. 18's fantastic, you're going to love it. What I'm going to ask you to do is go on a little trip to when you were 18, and I want you to think, based on looking at me now, I am in fact inviting you to judge me. Would we have hung out together, and why or why not? Okay. About a month ago, my youngest was home, having just graduated college. She was home for about a week. That was the extent of her summer vacation because she went right from college to an adult job, which was every parent's dream. But she came home to be a kid for a little bit. And one of the nights, we decided to let her choose what movie we were going to watch. And she chose a Percy Jackson film. Wanted to relive her childhood. So we're watching it. And I don't even remember this. I think it's one of the movies that I probably took her to see and I fell asleep in. But we're rewatching it, and there's this point at which Percy goes to this place that's magical, and it's all rooted in Greek mythology. And there's a sign on like an entryway, and it's written in Greek, and I read it out loud. And my daughter looks at me and is like, "How the fuck did you know how to read that?" Because she just graduated college, so she can say fuck around me now. And I said, "Oh, I learned Greek when I was in a fraternity in college." And she looked at me and she was like, "I'm sorry?" She knows all the stories about me in college. She knows that I was an ethnic studies minor, a political science major. She knows that I was president of Amnesty International. She knows that I was a member of PETA. She knows all these things. She knows that her mom and I met in college and fell in love and all this. And she looked at me with this look of like, "You never said anything about a fraternity." And so, yeah, I was in a fraternity. And she's like, "I need to hear about this." And I said, "Okay, well, I decided last minute to go to the same college that your Aunt Kelly went to. And your Aunt Kelly, someone who she knows I love and I have kind of a troubled relationship with, Aunt Kelly, 2 years ahead of me, when I said, the college we go to has a Greek system, what do you think about that?" She said, "If you join a fraternity, I will disown you." And interestingly, Aunt Kelly at the time was a psychology major, so you'd think she would have known that saying that to me would not be a deterrent, but having an older sister who I kind of wanted to just piss off all the time led me right to the Greek system. So I just said, "I'm going to check it out. I don't want to limit my options. I'm going to do this thing they call pledging." Or rushing, or whatever it is. So fall semester of my freshman year, I'm telling my daughter, I was like, "Yeah, I decided to rush." And she looks horrified. She's gone to an art school where if they have a fraternity, I think that there's like a trans fraternity, a queer fraternity, and then maybe a really small fraternity of straight cis kids. I'm not sure. But she's looking at me horrified. And I was like, "Yeah," so I went and I did the rush thing, and I found a house that I wanted to join. It was the Alpha Tau Omegas. And one of the things we had to do was to read a book with all the rules, and in that was the Greek alphabet. You had to learn the Greek alphabet, and being a good student, I memorized it. And so that's how I knew how to read the sign on the Percy Jackson thing. And she's like, "Okay, I don't really care about that anymore. Tell me more about this fraternity thing." I said, "Well, what do you want to know?" And she's like, "What did you do? Like, was it gross?" And I was like, "No, it was okay. Like, I go to parties on, the weekends, and I learned that there were basically two things that happened at parties. Well, three things. The one thing that everybody did is you drink a lot of really crappy beer, but then after you drink a lot of beer, you do one of two things. You either seem to disappear, usually with somebody, or you end up on the sleeping porch, where we just ended up playing air guitar to Rush." And so then I asked my oh God. I was like, do you know Rush? And she was like, I don't think so. I was like, you really should know Rush. Like, underrated band, not a lot of female fans. You might be interested in them. But we would just, like, Limelight would come on, and we'd be air guitaring on the sleeping porch. And she's like, and then what would you do? And I was like, go to bed. And she's like, well, that doesn't sound very fun. I was like, no, it was great. But then they'd have, like, big house parties. She was like, what was one of the big house parties? It's like, well, they had this one called the Fur Trapper Ball. It was awesome. And she just looked at me, she's like, you gotta be kidding me. Fur Trapper Ball? And I was like, no, it was great. It's not what you think. It was about, like, old time Oregon. And she's like, what did you do? And I said, well, I went and I was dressed up in, like, jeans and a black and red checkered flannel and boots and suspenders. And she paused and she's like, Dad, you know that's more lumberjack than like fur trapper. And I was like, well, I know, but remember, I was in the PETA club, and so I didn't want to wear the fur hat. That seemed counterintuitive. And she's like, and what did you do at the Fur Trapper Ball? And I said, well, that was interesting. I was the only one who showed up like I did, because apparently it didn't mean fur trapper the way that I thought it did. It meant it a different way. And so what I ended up doing was drinking a lot of shitty beer and then playing air guitar to Rush on the sleeping porch. This time it was YYZ, not Limelight, and it was fantastic. Learned that one. And she's just not looking convinced. She's thinking, like, I think I feel okay that I never did the Greek system in college. And she's like, was there anything valuable in it? And I was like, well, no, that's actually the thing. It didn't last that long because over time, I just stopped showing up at the house. And the guys, they knew that. There was a house meeting I went to where the introductory thing was to celebrate who had the largest number of STIs in the time that they'd been there. And I just realized, like, I don't think that's me. And then there came this time when, like, you got to choose a big brother, and all of us pledges put in the name of the big brother that we wanted. And there was this one guy who seemed like the really cool guy, so I put his name down, but we weren't allowed to talk to each other about who we got. And then on the night of the big reveal, all the big brothers are, like, uniting with their little brothers, I guess, and I'm the last one, and I'm asked to guess who it is, and I guess all these other people, because I assumed the one that I wanted, like, they weren't going to give that to me. He was a super cool dude. So I guess everybody in the house, including the house mom, who's the woman who, like, makes food for the whole house, before I look at this guy and he's like, dude, you fucking asked me to be the big brother. Why didn't you guess me? And I was like, I don't know, I guess I thought you didn't get what you want in a fraternity. And it just didn't go well. I just realized I wasn't quite fraternity material. And so finally, in I think it was like late October, would-be big brother calls me and he's like, hey Pat, we want to talk to you about joining the fraternity because we're about to do initiation. You're about to have to make the decision about whether you want to join or not. And we would love to have you, but it just seems like you don't really want to be in the fraternity. And I kind of paused for a minute and I said, well, I mean, I like Rush, and the beer you drink is okay, and I enjoy Hannah. The house is a little dirty, but yeah, I guess you're right. And he said, listen, that's fine. I mean, we would love to have you. We understand if you don't want to. And it was like the best breakup I'd ever had in my life. And in the moment, I realized, wait a minute, I think I know what's happening. You're telling me it's okay if I don't want you, which is a subtle way of you telling me you don't want me either, and we're gonna go our separate ways, and I still pissed off my sister, so I think I'm the winner here. And he's like, yeah, you basically got it right, that's okay. And I said, that's fantastic, thank you, it's been a fun experience, I'm sorry I didn't understand the Fur Trapper Ball very well. And he said, no, that's great, and listen, there's one more thing we wanted to ask. And at this point, I look over at my daughter, and she's like, I still can't believe you were in the fraternity. I said, well, hold on, you'll understand why in a minute. They said, Big Brother said, we'd like to ask, it's okay that you don't want to be in the fraternity, but we'd like to ask if we can keep you on the roster because we just saw your first quarter grades come out and they really help our house average. And so if we can make you a deal, you can come for all the parties you want, because there were Rush albums I hadn't discovered yet by that point. You can come for all the parties you want and you don't have to be an official member of the house. And at the time, I realized, I think I'm being offered the best deal I can possibly get. And so I got to tell my daughter, yes, I was in a fraternity technically. If you do a public records request, you'll probably see me on there for 4 years. But did I actually become a member of Alpha Tau Omega? No. Thank you very much.